In the wild, survival is brutal. And when man and beast cross paths, fate can turn in an instant. One moment, a wounded buffalo is on the brink of death, trapped, suffering and desperate. The next, it becomes a force of unstoppable rage, turning the tables on the very man trying to save it. What happens when a legendary conservationist, a man dedicated to protecting Africa's wildlife, comes face to face with an animal driven by pain and fury? This is the tragic and unbelievable true story of John Digby Bristow, a man whose compassion for nature led to an encounter that cost him everything. Stay with me, because this is one tale you won't forget. Welcome to Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, the channel where we dive deep into the most intense, jaw-dropping and unbelievable encounters between humans and the wild. From terrifying predator attacks to shocking survival stories, we bring you the raw power of nature, the dangers of the untamed wilderness, and the true stories that prove just how thin the line is between life and death when man and beast collide. Before we dive into today's incredible story, take a second to be part of this adventure. If you love gripping wildlife tales, make sure to smash that like button. It helps us bring you more insane, real-life encounters. Drop a comment below and let us know, what's the wildest animal encounter you've ever heard of? Or have you ever come face to face with danger in the wild? We want to hear your story. And hey, don't just watch, join the pack. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode of the wildest, most intense stories on YouTube. We're here every week with real-life encounters that will leave you on the edge of your seat. All right, buckle up, because this is one savage tale you won't believe. Nature is ruthless. The wild shows no mercy, and when man and beast collide, only one walks away. This is Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where survival is never guaranteed. John Digby Bristow was no stranger to the dangers of the African wilderness. A man deeply committed to conservation, he had spent decades working to protect and preserve Zimbabwe's rich wildlife. His work extended far beyond simple advocacy. He was hands-on, dedicated, and willing to risk everything for the creatures he fought to protect. But the wild is unpredictable, and sometimes even the noblest intentions can lead to tragedy. It all began when Bristow received word of an injured Cape buffalo roaming the rugged terrain of the Mateka Hills in Zimbabwe's Mwenezi district. This was no ordinary wound. The animal had been caught in a gin trap, a cruel and indiscriminate device used by poachers. The jagged steel jaws of the trap had clamped onto the buffalo's leg, causing deep, festering wounds. Unable to move freely, the animal had likely suffered for days, its pain festering into pure rage. For a seasoned conservationist like Bristow, leaving the animal to die a slow and agonizing death was not an option. He knew he had to intervene to either free the beast from its torment or, if necessary, put it out of its misery. As dusk settled over the vast Zimbabwean wilderness, Bristow and his wife Vanessa made their way to the location where the buffalo had last been spotted. The air was thick with the scent of dry earth and the distant sounds of the African night coming to life. Crickets chirping, hyenas cackling in the distance, and the occasional deep grunt of a nearby animal. By the time they arrived at the site, it was 6:30 p.m. The fading sunlight cast long shadows across the terrain, turning the bush into a maze of dark silhouettes. The buffalo, a massive bull weighing nearly a ton, stood just ahead. Its breathing was labored, its muscles tense. Even in its wounded state, it radiated raw, untamed power. Bristow moved with caution, fully aware of the dangers posed by a wounded buffalo. Cape buffalo, often called Black Death, are notorious for their unpredictable nature. Unlike other herbivores, they do not flee at the sight of humans, they stand their ground. And when provoked, they become one of Africa's most formidable and aggressive animals, capable of charging with incredible speed and brute force. But Bristow had dealt with dangerous situations before. He had spent years around these creatures and understood their behavior well. Keeping a safe distance, he carefully assessed the buffalo's condition. The wound was severe, the leg swollen and infected. The animal's eyes burned with a mixture of pain and fury, its breath coming in short, harsh bursts. At this point, Bristow knew there were only two possible outcomes. If the buffalo could be treated, it might have a chance at survival. But if the damage was too severe, the humane choice would be to end its suffering. With his rifle in hand, Bristow slowly stepped forward. He needed a clear shot, not necessarily to kill, but at least to subdue the animal long enough to inspect the injury up close. Vanessa and the others stood back about 30 meters away, watching with a mixture of anticipation and fear. The tension in the air was palpable. Every movement felt deliberate, every breath measured, and then it happened. In a flash, the wounded beast made its move. In an instant, the buffalo exploded into motion. Despite its severe injury, the massive beast surged forward with terrifying speed, a primal force driven by sheer adrenaline and rage. One moment, Bristow had the rifle raised, ready to take the shot. The next, the wounded titan had closed the distance between them in the blink of an eye. Bristow squeezed the trigger. A deafening crack echoed through the twilight, but the shot went wide. Perhaps it was the dimming light, or maybe it was the sheer unpredictability of the buffalo's charge. Whatever the reason, the bullet failed to stop the beast. And then the impact came. With the full force of nearly a ton of muscle and bone, the buffalo ploughed into Bristow, lifting him off the ground like a rag doll. A sickening crunch filled the air as the sheer force of the collision sent him sprawling onto the hard earth. Dust erupted around them as Bristow struggled to regain his footing, but the buffalo was relentless. Pinned beneath the enraged animal, Bristow fought desperately to escape. He tried to roll away, to find an opening, but the buffalo was faster. Its sharp, deadly horns found their mark, goring deep into his side. The force of the blow sent waves of searing pain through his body, his vision blurring from the shock. Vanessa screamed. She and the others stood helpless, paralyzed by the horrifying scene unfolding before them. They could do nothing but watch in horror as the buffalo continued its relentless assault. Again and again, the beast pounded into Bristow, trampling him beneath its hooves, its weight crushing bones, its horns slicing through flesh. Each movement was fueled by agony and fury, the suffering of a creature caught in the cruel grip of a poacher's trap, now unleashed upon the very man who had come to end that suffering. For Bristow, every second felt like an eternity. The world around him faded into a haze of pain and dust. He tried once more to crawl away, his bloodied hands digging into the earth, but the buffalo was merciless. It would not relent. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the attack ended. The buffalo, its energy finally spent, snorted and backed away. For a brief moment it stood there, panting heavily, its dark eyes still burning with fury and fear. Then, with one final huff, it turned and disappeared into the shadows of the bush. Vanessa and the others rushed to Bristow's side. He was barely conscious, his body broken, his breath ragged, blood pooled beneath him, the deep gashes and internal injuries too severe to mend. They desperately tried to move him to safety, to stabilize him, but the damage was done. Minutes later, John Digby Bristow took his final breath. The man who had dedicated his life to protecting Africa's wildlife had fallen. Not to a poacher's bullet, not to the hand of man, but to the very force of nature he had fought so hard to preserve. His death sent shockwaves through the conservation world. Tributes poured in from across Zimbabwe and beyond, honoring a man whose legacy stretched far beyond the borders of his homeland. From his work in establishing the Mapungubwe Transfrontier Park to his role in aiding young revolutionaries during Zimbabwe's armed struggle, Bristow's impact was undeniable. But in the end, it was the unpredictability of the wild that took him. Nature is neither good nor evil. It is raw, untamed, and indifferent to the affairs of man. The buffalo that took Bristow's life was not a monster. It was a victim of human cruelty, a symbol of the relentless struggle between conservation and destruction. And as the African sun rose the next morning, casting golden light over the vast, untamed landscape, the wilderness remained unchanged, indifferent, unforgiving. For in the wild, survival is never guaranteed. What happened to John Digby Bristow is a haunting reminder of the raw, unpredictable power of nature. He dedicated his life to protecting Africa's wildlife, but in the end, it was that very wilderness, wounded, enraged and unforgiving, that took him. His story is not just one of tragedy, but of sacrifice, passion, and the delicate balance between man and beast. If this story left you on the edge of your seat, then don't let it end here. Smash that like button to help more people discover these incredible real-life encounters. Drop a comment below. What are your thoughts on this tragic tale? Do you think the buffalo acted out of instinct, or was this pure vengeance? We want to hear your take. And if you love gripping, intense, and sometimes terrifying stories from the wild, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Here on Savage Tales Animal Encounters, we bring you the raw, unfiltered truth of the wild, where every encounter is a matter of survival. A huge thank you for watching and being part of this journey into the heart of the wild. Your support keeps these stories alive, ensuring that the legacy of people like Bristow and the animals they fought to protect are never forgotten. Nature is ruthless, the wild shows no mercy, and when man and beast collide, only one walks away. This is Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where survival is never guaranteed.